We all want a stronger, a more competitive economy in Australia, don't we? The current state of globalization, digital disruption and population ageing is causing significant economic pressures on countries all around the world. And as a property investor or a business owner, this could hurt your bottom line. However, Australia's got an ace up its sleeve. Migrants. Immigration is one of the key drivers of innovation and economic growth in Australia today. And it's actually been that way for more than a century. Having diverse people coming to our shore fuels ideas, fuels markets. It gives us much needed skills that help transform our economy into a powerhouse. But there's another important part about immigration. Future citizens, those migrating, now help shape who we're going to be tomorrow. So today, I discuss why Australia needs more migrants and future citizens with leading demographer Simon Kuestenmacher, and I believe that's really going to be important for you to understand as a property investor. So welcome to today's show.
Welcome to the Michael Yardney podcast, where twice each week you will learn a number of new ideas regarding success, property investment and money in around 30 minutes. Our show is brought to you by Metropole, who specialise in helping you grow, protect and pass on your wealth through strategic property and wealth advice. Now here's your host, Michael Yardney, Australia's authority in wealth creation through property, who has been voted one of Australia's top 50 most influential thought leaders.
You've heard me say it before, demographics is going to drive our destiny over the long term, and it's the study of how many of us there are, how we want to live, where we want to live. And today I want to discuss why Australia needs more migrants, why Australia needs more future citizens, with leading demographer Simon Kuestenmacher. In recent years, increased immigration to Australia is with mixed reactions from different sectors of society. However, I see there are clear benefits for our nature when more people decide to call this land home. It strengthens our labour markets, it encourages innovation and growth, and it's great for businesses as well. So I actually see it as an essential part of Australia's growth to have more people, and I know that's something leading demographer Simon Kuestenmacher stresses passionately in his work. Now, for those of you who don't know Simon, he's a rising star globally in the field of data management and insights. He's the co-founder of the Demographics Group and a columnist in the Australian and the New Daily newspapers. Hi, Simon.
Hi, Michael.
Now, Simon, you wrote in one of your columns in the New Daily that Australia needs more migrants and future citizens. Why do you say that?
Well, first and foremost, that has to do with our aging population. The age structure is shifting. The largest birth cohort that we ever had was the baby boomer generation, born in the 18 years following the end of the Second World War, so in the 40s, 50s and early 60s. They are still young and healthy enough. You know, the oldest one is in their mid-70s at the moment. But in 10 years' time, this cohort will at scale reach the stage of the life cycle where they need care at record numbers. We don't have the aged care workforce available to look after those people. We need to make sure that we get enough migrants just to make sure to be able to look after our aging cohort. At the moment, we don't have enough workers, and that can be quite catastrophic. And of course, as those people are aging out of the workforce, the baby boomers, in 10 years' time, even the youngest baby boomer will be of retirement age. And we only have a small cohort entering the workforce on the other end. That means, where do we get our productivity from? Well, we could, in theory, become heaps more productive by doubling down on AI, on robotics, on algorithms. All this is possible. But the easiest way to grow the economy and to grow the opportunities to fill all those job openings that we have at the moment in the country via migration. And growing a country, a population base via migration is actually purely economically speaking better than growing it by having babies. Simply because it's very egotistical for a nation to say this, but the first 20 years or so of a human's life are very expensive. You're being born, you go to kindergarten, you go to school, you go to university. It's costly. If you get a migrant in, like me, for example, Germany, in my case, paid for all these expensive first 23 years of my life or whatever it was. And how do I repay them? by, jumping ship to Australia and paying tax here right away. Economically speaking, migration is a no-brainer. It is absolutely fantastic. There are, of course, a couple of issues with migration that we need to deal with. One of them has to do with integration of these people into society. Can we run a socially cohesive society if we get more and more people into the country? The answer is we can. And Australia is doing a great job, considering just how many migrants we have. A third of the population was born overseas. In cities like Sydney, this is close to half of the whole city. Considering how diverse and multicultural we are, we don't have enough problems, if you will. So we are doing great jobs. We are not a fundamentally racist nation. If you throw 26 million people together into a pod and they're dealing in there, of course there will be racist incidents. You will have those incidents. They're horrible. They need to be stopped, of course. But ultimately, these happen in very, very low rates in the country.
Now, obviously, our government has got a budget deficit and has taken on a lot of debt. And if we lose all the taxpayers as the baby boomers retire, and all of a sudden these people are going to need more health care, and we know that the healthcare system's creaking at the moment and can't cope, it actually definitely does need more taxpayers. So sure, artificial intelligence will replace some of the jobs, but I don't think robots pay tax at the moment, Simon. So we need more taxpayers, don't we?
Exactly. We just want to keep the tax base coming. It's a ratio that you measure from workers to non-workers. You just want to make sure that this stays even. Worldwide, this is getting more difficult because we'll reach peak humanity in the 2060s to 2080s. We're not really sure when, but we will reach peak humanity. And then we'll start forever shrinking as a planet. And that means certain countries that are attractive enough for people to move there because they are democracies that guarantee the rule of law, that offer a nice lifestyle, work-life balance. These places can still grow even in a shrinking or stagnating world. And Australia is one of those places. We are actually a very big country with a very small population. And people always point to certain issues that are very real and that need to be managed when we talk about migration. We say, well, isn't that hurting the environment? Isn't that bad for CO2 emissions? Well, yes, to a degree, because every human creates a CO2 footprint. But that said, you can't look at Australia as a closed system because a migrant that we take away from Germany, like me once again, I'm creating emissions in Australia rather than in Germany. So the world doesn't care where I do this. And if we look at other more polluting countries, we actually need to honestly ask the question from a purely environmental perspective, are we better off taking those people into our country than having them in a country that is polluting more? And then another argument that is usually put against migration is that we say, well, migrants use up resources. They clog up the infrastructure system, the traffic, they create traffic gridlock. Yes, that's true. The more people, the more strain on our existing infrastructure, and the more pressure on the housing market. But really what this points to, the problem in Australia, is that we didn't grow infrastructure and we didn't grow the housing stock at a rate that is adequate to the level of population growth that we saw over the last decades. There is no city, there is no country that has too many people. There is just a mismatch between population size and infrastructure development and housing stock. And that's where you want to really double down on. We need to really amp up housing supply, and we probably have about 2 decades worth of infrastructure backlog in this country that we need to address.
Yeah, I think that's worth discussing, but let's just put some context to it. Currently, our population is around 26 million, and it's going to reach around 29 million by 2030 and probably 40 million by the middle of the decade. So, as you say, lots more cars on the road, but there's also going to be the need for more schools because these migrants who are coming in are going to have children, and I'm not sure where they're going to place all those schools. There's also going to be the need for other social infrastructure as well. So you're right, we're already behind in supplying that infrastructure. And there's also going to have to be a change in town planning, I think, Simon, because most of these people are going to want to live in our big capital cities and in much the same suburbs. Now, we talk about bringing in skilled migrants, but the skills are the sort of skills that maybe some people don't think about. It's not actually the high-tech skills that are going to work in the CBD. A lot of these migrants, Simon, in my opinion, are going to work in the suburbs. They're going to work in healthcare. They're going to work in schools. They're going to work from home offices.
Yeah, so, maybe just a simple comment about how migration works in this country. We run a skilled migration scheme that we, of course, also take in international students. They're temporary residents. They essentially just come here like tourists and consume a service, education, but it's like a tourist who would be here for a month. The international students are here for a couple of years. Let's ignore them for a while. More than anything, we import people based on their skills. So we have a thing called the skilled migration list. We put the jobs that we need in this country on this list, and we'll take in anyone who has a job that is, or who has the qualifications that we need. There are a couple of other elements to this, but essentially we order the qualifications that we want. So therefore, by definition, migrants that we let into the country have the skills that we need. That then leads to the discussion, what kind of skills are we looking for in the coming decades? The number one job by a long shot will be aged care workers. If you are an aged care worker from overseas and you want to come to Australia, that'll be easy. Same for any medical profession. We have a big shortage there. If a medical professional from overseas wants to come to Australia, they will have it very easy to come here. We also have lots of engineering and management kind of jobs that we put in there because we are still transitioning more and more towards becoming a knowledge economy with lots and lots of highly skilled IT engineering kind of professionals. Those people will also come. But as you mentioned, lots and lots of people with we sometimes call them relatively low skilled workers in the care sector that will be absolutely crucial. And you mentioned it as well. We know where they will want to live because care ideally is co-located, or the location of care givers is co-located with the location of caretakers. And baby boomers will want to age in place. They're telling us this already. Baby boomers live in the middle suburbs of Australia. They want to consume care, ideally in their own home. So we want more and more businesses to provide ambulant care services. And so where do those workers live? They will need to live at least somewhat near the middle suburbs. That means that those middle suburbs will need to stop being the bastions of NIMBYism that they currently are, and they will need to become a bit more welcoming to medium density developments that offer affordable housing for those. This is not social housing. This is housing for skilled workers, aged care workers that provide a local service.
Now, one of the things that you wrote about in your column in the New Daily was that one of the major tools Australia isn't using adequately to entice these migrants to come is citizenship. What did you mean by that?
I mean by this that it's very difficult to acquire citizenship. Meaning we'll let you in if you're a skilled migrant, you get to work here for a couple of years, and then after you get to apply for permanent residency, but that's a cumbersome, bureaucratic, and very expensive process. Then it takes an even more cumbersome additional process to become a citizen eventually. It is very, very difficult. That means that we are missing out on those migrants whose goal it is to acquire citizenship. This is particularly currently the case for the Indian and Chinese migrant cohorts, and other countries have understood what those skilled migrant wants. Canada essentially started to throw citizenship at its international students like it was candy. They're handing them out very easily and generously, and this is how they win the competition for skilled migrants. Because maybe we are, as a people, overestimating the availability of skilled migrants in the world. Ultimately, the pool of young, skilled migrants, people in their 20s and 30s, is drying out. As soon as the 2030s, the early 2030s, the global population of people in their 20s and 30s is starting to decline. So that means the competition for those workers will get bigger and bigger. And that means the countries that want to import those people from overseas, they need to be a bit more generous towards them. They need to make an easy pathway to citizenship available. They need to offer attractive wage and rental or mortgage packages to those people. If our cities become too expensive for what is a low income job, a aged care worker, for example, we don't get those migrants. Other countries will get those migrants. And then our aging population are the ones that suffer from our failure to do so.
Well, I came as a migrant at the age of 3, and over the decades I've noticed how Australia's become increasingly multicultural. But where the migrants have come from in the 50s when I came with my parents, and the 60s and 70s, it's changed now. So I remember a lot of them were European-born, Greeks and Italians in particular. There was, of course, a lot of British migrants as well. Then the Vietnamese came and they became very hard workers here. And now Chinese, and I guess it's a lot of Indian migrants are coming to Australia, Simon.
Exactly. So the waves of migration, they just change over time. And by now, there is actually no racial or national bias towards who we let into the country.
That's right. I forgot. We had a white Australia policy, didn't we, way back then?
Exactly. Decades ago, the goal was to get white people into this country. And so therefore there's this, I think the idea still hangs in there that we dictate who we let into the country and who isn't allowed in the country. That doesn't exist. So we don't filter people based on ethnicity, based on nationality. This is purely based on skill. So then you wonder, why are there so many Indians coming, for example, at the moment? This has to do with the beautiful alignment of the education system in India that creates heaps of techie skilled people and our skilled needs in the country. It's a great match. Plus Indians love cricket. So what's not to like? And they go into English speaking educations in their own country. So that's marvelous. It's an easy match. And at the same time, the population of young people of migrant age, people 18 to 39, that's migrant age in Europe, a traditional source of migrants into Australia, has been declining and is a shrinking cohort. So it's quite, just statistically speaking, it makes sense that migrants just come from other locations. And India is the top destination at the moment by a long shot.
Well, I think in conclusion, migrants bring mutual benefits. Their talents and their drive, their fresh set of eyes bring up all sorts of opportunities. Plus, they fill a desire and need that we have here to fill the jobs. But as we've said, with it will come various challenges, a shortage of housing, a shortage of infrastructure. Let's hope our politicians and planners are going to be able to handle this, because, look, there's no doubt we are going to have a population boom. If we don't get the infrastructure right, it may stop us from being the most livable country in the world, Simon.
Yes, and that points to one issue that I actually am pretty mad about, is the idea that two of our most important policies in this country aren't linked to each other. We set a net migration limit. So it used to be 180,000 net new migrants is what we allow into the country, and then we don't allow anyone after this for this year. This now has been amped up to 235,000 people. Some people say it should be even higher. And that is not linked to the housing policy. And that is ludicrous. You cannot say we amp up the migration intake by an additional 50,000 people and put a plan to place to make sure that there is enough housing for the additional population. That is silly. These policies need to be linked. The housing minister and the migration minister, they need to become best buddies. They need to sit together in the canteen in Canberra. They need to play golf together. They need to live in the same house. They need to work together left, right, and center. These policies need to be linked. We need a housing target in this country. This housing target probably needs to dictate to every city, and then every city needs to dictate to the individual local government areas where housing needs to be placed. There need to be housing targets. These areas are then allowed to decide how this housing is being developed, where it is developed, what shape it should look like. But if they fail to listen to those targets, if they become very strong NIMBYs, then funding needs to be withheld from those local government areas.
I think that's a very valid point that you're making, and are our politicians up to it, considering that it takes time to do all these developments, and politicians in general think in short term, in election cycles. Let's wait and see. Simon, it's been fun chatting once again, and I look forward to these monthly chats with you. I know if people want to keep in contact with you and hear your thoughts about what's happening now, and just as importantly, what's happening in the future, Twitter's a great place to follow you. You talk a lot about maps there as well. I love following your tweets. And also you have a regular column every Sunday in the New Daily, which isn't hidden behind a paywall. So that's a great place to get your content as well. Catch up with you again soon. Thank you, Simon.
Thanks for having me.
In a moment, I'm going to share my mindset message with you. But if you enjoyed my chat with Simon Kuestenmacher today, and you don't currently subscribe to this podcast, please use the podcast app that you're listening to and click the follow button so you get updated each time a new show comes out. Now, I've been speaking with Simon probably on a monthly basis for over a couple of years now, so you can always go back to the back episodes and hear all the great information he has to share as well. Clearly, demographics are going to drive our markets, and that's one of the reasons the team at Metropole spend a lot of time researching the demographic trends in various areas. But if you enjoyed what you heard from Simon today, you'll love what he teaches the delegates at Wealth Retreat, our 5-day retreat we're going to be conducting at the end of April, and it's designed to help you plan the next 5 years of your life. When you join us, you're going to be surrounded by the best faculty of property, tax, money, business and finance experts who are going to be providing life-changing information. I'm using that term. Well, I'm a bit nervous about saying that, but boy, I've seen the results happening. Okay, let's call it knowledge-sharing sessions, and they're going to mentor you on planning for your future success. You see, the Wealth Retreat theme is where you're going to be in 5 years' time. And that's in all areas of your life, not just money, but relationships and contribution and health and recreation and spirituality. You see, we're going to upgrade your wealth operating system, which is going to change the way you look at your financial future. And then, only then, can we give you a toolbox full of tools to achieve your newly upgraded goals. At Wealth Retreat, we also give you the perfect environment to help set the new goals, but also uncover your own wealth building strategies, because each person's aims are different. You're going to learn from industry experts and you're going to make meaningful connections. See, that's one of the huge benefits at Wealth Retreat, because you're going to have an instant network of already successful property investors, business people, and entrepreneurs. So go to wealthretreat.com.au, read all about it, express your interest, and if you want to come along, I speak with everybody who wants to join us at Wealth Retreat. Well, I speak to everyone who's going to join us at Wealth Retreat to make sure it's right for you, because I back myself, I back you, and offer a money-back guarantee. So why not start planning for a more secure financial future? Go to wealthretreat.com.au. I look forward to getting to know you better.
Now here's Michael's mindset message. Remember, a change in your thinking will lead to a change in your life.
You're probably listening to this podcast because you're looking for more success in life, whether it's in money, within your business, with property investment. That's why people tend to come here. And I've found that most property investors won't change their level of wealth until they themselves change. Now, rather than disagree with me, please humour me for a moment and listen on, because I think I've got a particularly important message to give you in today's session. You see, sometimes we love change and sometimes we hate it. In fact, some of us love to change and others fear it. So why is it so difficult for many of us to change? It's because change makes us move out of our comfort zone. It takes courage to leave something familiar, something that you're comfortable with, and to try something new. In fact, one of the jobs of our subconscious mind is survival, to protect us. It likes to keep things the same, preferring safety and security over the untested and the unproven. Haven't we heard people say before, better the devil you know than the devil you don't know? Well, we tend to believe that if we stick with what we know, with what we're familiar with, then we won't get hurt. But the problem is, in terms of wealth creation, it's not what we know that's holding many of us back. It's what we think we know that isn't so that's holding us back. Now, I know you're used to listening to my thoughts on the podcast and reading my thoughts on property in these podcasts and blogs, but for a moment I'd like to share my thoughts on wealth creation instead, because really that's what you're wanting when you're coming here to learn about property. You're really wanting to get the results and the certainty and the direction by having a substantial asset base of properties. That's really not property that you're after. So I'd like for a moment to discuss why many Australians are not as far advanced with their wealth creation as they'd like to be. And I'm not talking about the external circumstances and the recession and COVID and all the other things. They're external excuses. You see, most Australians are not as successful as they'd like to be, haven't developed the financial freedom they'd like to be, yet they continue to do the same things over and over, hoping somehow things will be different. Think about it. If you're going to keep doing the things you always did, you're going to keep getting the results you've always got. If what you've been looking for is where you're looking, chances are you'd already have found it. Doing more of the same, even harder, even longer, isn't usually the answer. Being willing to change, though, will create better results. However, the good news is you can have more. You can become more successful because you personally can change. You can become more. So what is it that holds most of us back? And many years ago, I coined the term and actually trademarked it, the wealth operating system, your financial blueprint, the programming you received as a child. It was initially described by Wallace Wattles in The Science of Getting Rich. I know it was almost a century ago, and more recently by T. Harv Eker in his great book, Secrets of the Millionaire Minds. And they said, your thoughts lead to your feelings. Your feelings lead to your actions, and your actions determine your results. So it's no coincidence that your inner world creates your outer world. The programming you received as a child, that leads to your thoughts, your fears, your limitations about wealth creation today. So one of the first steps in change is changing your thoughts. Now you say, oh yeah, Michael, that doesn't apply to me. Interestingly, once a year I get together with a group of already very, very successful property investors, business people and entrepreneurs at Wealth Retreat. And when we unpack this in detail, when we help them build the next 5 years of their life, design the next 5 years, give them strategies and new goals, in the security of this room of already other successful people where everyone's left out their Superman capes at the front door, so there's no egos, you'll find that even the most successful people are held back by limiting beliefs. We are all, not just them, we're all driving around with one foot on the accelerator and one on the brake. We're holding ourselves back. So I guess my question to you is, how do you think about money, about success and about prosperity? What do you say to yourself? What does that little voice in your head say? Now you may say, no, there isn't. What little voice? No, there isn't one. Yes, there is. It's the one that's saying that now. You see, for many of us, our thoughts revolve around fear, around scarcity, around limitation. The problem is what you focus on expands. So if you think about fear, about scarcity, about limitation, what do you achieve? Now remember what I said a moment ago. Your thoughts lead to your feelings lead to your actions lead to your results. So what happens when you think about fear, scarcity, limitation? You see, money's a result. Wealth is a result. Your health is a result. Your results in all fields of your life are caused by you, by your actions. Now, this occurs in your outer world, but as I was trying to tell you, it's determined by your thoughts and your feelings in your inner world. For many Australians, their current mindset just won't let them get to the next level of wealth. Now, I know they blame the government and their job and the banks and their education or their parents. But it's not that. And it's not the lack of knowledge that they've got or they want. They think they need to know more. It's not what they don't know that prevents them from succeeding. As I said before, it's what they think they know that isn't correct that's their greatest obstacle. The way they think is their greatest obstacle. It's because of their programming, as I said, their wealth operating system, the way that they were programmed by things they heard, by things they saw, and the things they experienced when they were young. This is a type of thermostat that's usually set in our childhood and gives each of us our feelings and our beliefs about money and wealth. The problem is, for many Australians, their thermostat isn't set for wealth. Now, when I used to run seminars, I used to say, hands up, anyone in the room has had multimillionaire parents. If my kids weren't in the room, they probably didn't. There was hardly anyone to put up their hand. But sometimes there was one or two people, and you'd say, hey, don't you think the conversation around their kitchen table was different to the conversation around your kitchen table, around my kitchen table when I grew up? So if you had wealthy, successful, financially affluent parents, then it's possible, it's likely that they've helped you become more financially affluent. But for most of us, our parents, despite being well-meaning, didn't give us the wealth operating system that we deserve. As I said, the problem for most Australians is their wealth thermostat isn't set for wealth. Many of us need to intentionally change our inner world, our way of thinking. You need to start thinking about prosperity, about abundance, and about success to enable us to attract those very things. First, we need to change the way we think about ourselves. We need to see ourselves as a wealthy person, as a wealth attractor, as a wealth creator. Now, before you turn off and say Michael's into woo-woo stuff today, if I thought I could help you become more wealthy talking about the next property hotspot or when the property market is going to boom or turn, that's what I'd be spending this session with you on. But I genuinely believe that despite having all the information about property, about wealth, about shares, about business, about finance, unless you increase your financial thermostat, you'll never get the wealth you desire. So please bear with me, because this is the big, big difference. This is the reason why people go to podcasts and blogs and seminars and courses, and only a small group ever become financially successful. This is the information other people don't tell us about. So you need to change. You need to change some of the ingrained thinking patterns. Now, I'm not belittling the success you already have. I don't know you personally. Thousands and thousands of people, tens of thousands of people download this podcast every episode. The thing, though, is that we're all driving around with one foot on the accelerator, as I said, and one on the brake. So yes, even you will have some limiting beliefs. So you need to change some of those ingrained thinking patterns or overcome some of the negative ways that have developed as a result of your past experiences. The problem is many of us are scared of change. We find it hard to change, even though change is natural. In fact, the only constant in this world, the only thing you can absolutely count on is change itself. Often because our subconscious mind's programmed to keep things the same and protect us, that's the reason we have difficulty changing, as I said. Yet most successful people all share one critical characteristic. It's the trait of adaptability. They embrace change. They look for opportunities to expand and learn. Another common characteristic of successful people is that they've got a mentor and they belong to a mastermind group. They hang around other like-minded successful people. Now, a moment ago I mentioned about Wealth Retreat. When I speak to people who are going to join us at Wealth Retreat, one of the biggest challenges a lot of people have is isolation. They don't have many people to talk with about their wealth, about their business, about their success. Not people that understand what's going on. And your peer group does matter. It does make a difference. So you've got to hang around like-minded, successful people. If you continue to do the things you've always done, you're going to continue to get the results you've always achieved. So if you want to move forward in your wealth creation, you're going to have to hang around different people. You're going to have different mentors. I think it was Einstein who said the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, but expecting a different result. You see, results will change when people change their way of thinking. If any of what I've just said to you makes an impression, you're going to realize if you want to get to another place in your life financially, then you're going to have to do something differently. And doing things differently requires thinking differently first. If you change your way of thinking, you'll change your actions. If you change your actions, you'll change your results. But the investors that I've seen stuck in the same financial position just didn't understand the importance of what I'm sharing with you today. However, as I've already explained, you can have more because you can become more. You see, here's the other side of the coin. It says that unless you change how you are, you're always going to have what you've got. Now, all this property stuff I share with you regularly is good. It's powerful. But on its own, it just won't do it. In order to have more, you've got to become more. The rich keep getting richer because they're programmed to, they're conditioned to, while most of us are boxed in by the boundaries of our thoughts. the message I'm trying to get to you is wealth is a result. It's a result of your thoughts and your beliefs, which lead to actions. There's a common theme here, isn't there? So it's important for us to understand that we are all fully responsible for our own financial results. And again, I'm not belittling where you are at the moment. As I said, tens of thousands of people listen to this show every episode. Some are beginners. Some are already very, very successful investors. Many of them are clients of Metropole. Many of you are part of my mentorship program. I know a small group of you I've met personally and spent 5 days working closely with you at Wealth Retreat. So I understand that there's a whole range of people going to be listening to this. And those who have gotten to the next level understand that their future is their own responsibility. If things aren't working out for you the way you want them to, you need to stop taking the easy way out and blaming outside factors. It's not your boss's fault, nor is it the government's fault or the low interest rates or the high interest rates or the property market. And it's not the lack of information. There's so much information out there, not just what I give you, but what so many other people give you. You need to stop justifying where you are or where you're not financially at the moment. Most of what you have today, you've attracted by becoming the person you are today. If you want to change things in your life financially, you've got to change first. Everything you're doing right now, you're in the habit of doing. And everything you're not doing right now, you're in the habit of not doing. Now, if you've heard me speak on the topic of the psychology of success, you'll know I suggest you always get what your subconscious wants, not what you think you want. Now, I know you may be uncomfortable with me saying this, but the level of wealth you're experiencing at the moment is the level of wealth you're most comfortable with. You'll never create more wealth than you're unconsciously comfortable with. I know some of you are saying, Michael, that's not fair. You don't know. I've lost my job because of the economy at the moment, or my properties aren't working because of this or that. You don't know about my education, or I've got 5 kids and I can't afford to. No. The level of wealth you've created up to now is the level you're most comfortable with. Look, let me put it a different way. If you took all the money in the world and distributed it evenly, I believe in, 4 or 5 years it'd be back in the same proportions again. Do you agree with that? What about all those people who win the lottery or get an inheritance? And you've heard it before. They've lost it as they've squandered in 4 or 5 years' time. Now, I've actually never come across anyone who's won a major lottery, but I have come across a lot of people who've actually got a major inheritance, and after a couple of years it's all gone. So what can you do about this? What can you do for you to get to the next level?
Well, a little earlier on I gave you a way of moving up to the next level, of making the rest of your life the best of your life, and that's by joining us at Wealth Retreat on the Gold Coast in April this year. If you think about it, actors flock to Byron Bay. Investment bankers go to Sydney and Melbourne. High-tech entrepreneurs, I guess they migrate to Silicon Valley. The list goes on and on. When you want to play the game at a high level, it's important to go where the right people are, and it's important to build great relationships. And it's not that complicated, yet many people fail to do it. So I know in today's world, I can do it on Zoom. I'm listening to podcasts. Everything's happening virtually. No, that's actually not the same. I think I know there is a huge benefit in getting to see people face to face, because when you come to Wealth Retreat, it's not just the faculty that's going to give you great information, but it's the person sitting next to you, or the person you have breakfast, lunch, or dinner with. It has a lot to do with relationships. I find a lot of investors, once they get to a particular level, feel isolated, and the real world is much better than the virtual world. So where can investors, business owners, entrepreneurs go to get a room full of the right sort of people? Well, the good news is you actually don't have to go too far at all. What you've got to do, because now it's okay to travel around Australia, isn't it, is come to and join us at Wealth Retreat on the Gold Coast at the end of April. I'll leave a link in the show notes, or go to wealthretreat.com.au. We've been running this for 18 years, and I've been thrilled, amazed by the life-changing events, because what we do is change your way of thinking. We upgrade your wealth operating system, and then we give you a toolbox full of tools to help you achieve the goals that you set. We help you plan in all areas of your life, not just property and money, but contribution, relationships, spirituality, family. And this year we're going to have Andrew Wilson, Ken Race, Pete Borgent, Mark Creedon, Tom Corley's coming from the United States, Simon Kuestenmacher, and many other outstanding experts. April's going to come around real quick. Go to wealthretreat.com.au, leave your expression of interest, and I talk with everybody who plans to join us to make sure it's going to be right for you, because I'm prepared to back myself. I've always offered a money-back guarantee at Wealth Retreat, but no one's ever taken it. But again, it's all about having the right people there. wealthretreat.com.au. I look forward to seeing you on the Gold Coast. Well, thanks for spending the last little while with me, and I hope you got some benefit from this show. If you did, and you know somebody else who'd also benefit, please tell them about the Michael Yardney podcast. There's a share button on every podcast app. On Apple Podcasts, there's 3 little buttons down the bottom. Press it and share it, or just tell them about the Michael Yardney podcast. I hope you're going to be doing them a favour, and you'll definitely be doing me a favour and helping me in my quest to make as many people as possible financially literate. Now, there's ways of catching up with me between these shows. Just look for Michael Yardney on social media, or why not join my private Facebook group? Go to Facebook and look for the Property Update Facebook group. And I have a way of saying thank you to you for subscribing to this podcast. Go to podcastbonus.com.au. There'll be a link in the show notes, podcastbonus.com.au, where you can get a bunch of ebooks and reports. My way of saying thank you. And when you've got time, why not listen to some of the old podcasts? There's individual lessons in each of those that I think would be helpful for you. I'll be back again real soon. In the meantime, have a great week. Make it a great week.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Michael Yardney podcast, which was brought to you by Metropole, who help their clients grow, protect, and pass on their wealth through strategic property and wealth advice. If you like what you heard and don't already subscribe, you'll find us on iTunes or on your favourite Android app as the Michael Yardney Podcast. Watch out for our next show, which comes to you twice a week, and you'll learn some new ideas about property investment, success and money in around 30 minutes. To get more of Michael's thoughts, go across to www.propertyupdate.com.au and sign up for his daily morning briefing, and you'll hear from not only Michael but a group of leading property success and money experts. And just a reminder that the information you heard in this show today is general educational advice and not specific investment advice, as we don't know your personal circumstances. If you're looking for specific advice, why not ask the team at Metropole to help you?